is Bill Benson, and Bob Jacobs asked me to say a few words about my friend, Bill Anderson. And before I do that, I'd like to share a little bit about long-range fishing, where I met Bill. Long-range fishing is an amazing experience for many of us. And Bill and I met many, many years ago and shared so many experiences on boats, catching fish, but more importantly, sharing who we were. So what I can share with you about Bill is he was an amazing man who lived an amazing life. And on the boat, I got to know him in a different perspective other than fishing. Oftentimes, Bill and I would, in a situation which the fish were not biting, we would find ourselves migrating towards the bow together to talk. And oftentimes those talks were about history, which I realize quite boring for some people, but not for Bill and I. So we would go up to the bow and oftentimes spend minutes, if not hours, talking about what we knew about the past. So Bill was an expert, well-read, intelligent man who had an expertise in Russian history, and my background was more to the south with Southern history, and we would sit up there and talk for hours, sometimes missing bites in the stern, but coming back fulfilled. So Bill has a piece of my heart that I'll miss, and I give his wife my best, and he will be treasured. Bill was a special man. You'll hear in this video many different escapades in his life that he had, and I feel honored to have known such a man as Bill Anderson.
guys, Ken Bell here from my home at Table Rock Lake. It's the middle of February back here in the Ozarks. I was sorry to hear about Bill's passing, and I really appreciate the call from Bob Jacobs. We made a lot of trips together, and we had a lot of fun, but aside from the wonderful fishing, my memory always goes to the hearts tournaments that we would have in the galley. Bill and his partner, John Malloy. I always thought of them as two fun-loving jokesters, and the rivalry just raged on. So guys, this July when you're down at the rocks, honoring Bill and honoring his memory, it's a wonderful thing you're doing, and I'll be thinking of you. So my best to the passengers, my best to the crew, especially those who knew me and remember me. So long, tight lines.
Also known as Malloy's Irish Pub. There's been a few drinks tipped here over time, but the main reason you're here, of course, is we want to honor Bill and Meade Anderson. As I understand, God will be sprinkling the ashes here in the not too distant future. You know, I make myself a few notes. I knew Bill for quite a long time. I couldn't even remember what year it was, but I do remember how I met him. I was a marketing manager for one of the Bristol Myers and Fishes, and Bill had just been hired as the new marketing director. and was therefore my new boss. Well, I met him when he unexpectedly showed up at a building that was separate from the main campus, walked into my office while I had my feet up on the desk reading the Wall Street Journal. He never ever let me forget that, and never ever let me forget me that he had to really climb all over me. Good news is he didn't fire me. I will say he did train me in marketing and sales, which came to be a great benefit to me later in my own business. So that's how I met Bill, and of course along with Bill came Meade Anderson. Meade often called me his second papa, and I think it's because I was the one that allowed him to do everything. I was probably more like his grandfather than his papa, but it was really wonderful knowing both of them. Well, we made it through that first meeting, and Bill and I got to be friends, and one day we decided, well, let's go play racquetball. So we started playing racquetball relatively routinely, and had a wonderful time doing that. And then one day, and I can't remember how it occurred, I think I was going to go offshore for just some fishing for some calico bass and sand bass and whatever. And he had never been a fisherman at all. So I said, hey, you want to go along? So he said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I had enough equipment that I just brought the equipment and got out there. Well, we got over this sand bass school that was huge. You could hardly get your bait down through it. I think he thought that's the way fishing went. You just dropped the bait down and you caught them all the time. Well, we really cleaned up that day, but needless to say, Bill was hooked. Of course, with Bill being hooked, that meant Meade was going to be hooked as well as part of the process, because we decided to do some other types of fishing. It was not long after that I went on my first long-range trip with one of my neighbors, who ended up not going because he got ill, but that's a whole other story. And so I went out fishing, and I think I caught, the first time out, I caught 8 wahoos. I went, well, this is pretty doggone good. Well, my neighbor that couldn't go with me happened to own a restaurant, so he said, why don't you just bring a couple of these back? And so I took him one back because he wanted to butcher it himself, but I also took 2 others back, one for my cousin and one for Bill. Bill walked into that freezer, his eyes got great big around, he's looking at that thing, and he says, well, I think we better sign up for another trip. And I said, you're on, bud. So that kind of started our long-range fishing and many of the other fishing trips that we went on, and there were quite a few. In fact, we were fishing so much that we decided, like most stupid fishermen, to go out and buy a boat. And we did, and we had a great time off Catalina and San Clemente, fishing for marlins and for makos and white sea bass and sand bass and calico bass, and just frankly, whatever bite when we were out there. So we had a great run with this boat called Realism, and he and Meade again were on that boat. We were on there, I think the first year we had it, we were out 37 weekends on that boat. We also made quite a number of trips in different parts of the world. We did a trip to Panama where Bill hooked this huge marlin that just kicked his butt up one side and down the other. But it was great, and I got to see part of it because the boat I was on, which I didn't catch the marlin, Bill had marlin on another boat that he was on. We were coming by as they were trying to reel this sucker in, and she was coming up, and man, I'm telling you, she was huge. Meade, of course, not to be outdone, landed a couple of great big fish too. I mean, we got into all different kinds of amberjacks and the snapper, the dog-tooth snapper. Boy, that's an ugly but tasty fish. And of course, we continued our long-range trips. I like to call our long-range trips, what we would do is we would certainly bring our scotch and our Irish whiskey and our bottles of wines, and then we would have all the Bloody Marys and all. I mean, I think it was a drinking trip with a little fishing in between. But when we were fishing in between, we caught a lot of fish. I think Bill's biggest was 279 pounds. That is one nice yellowfin tuna. Damn near killed him too, but he sure landed that fish and was real pleased and happy with that fish. The other interesting thing that happened during this whole process is Bill and I both got fired from the company we were working for. I guess I didn't get trained well enough, or I just pulled him down to my level. But that also opened Bill up to opening his own business, which turned out to be an extremely successful business. which he ended up selling, and of course helped him do a lot more fishing in his retirement. And so it worked out that not working for a corporation was really the best thing for both he and I, as it turns out. Now, I've got to say a few concluding remarks here. I think most of you know that Bill had a whole lot of patience. Well, now wait a minute. He didn't have any patience at all. Except for training me, he managed to get me trained. Maybe he just gave up, I'm not sure, but he had enough patience to get me trained. His son Meade could sleep anywhere. We would be on a boat jumping waves and Meade be sound asleep, just leaned up against a cushion or something. I mean, he could sleep anywhere. In conclusion, I have missed them. I continue to miss them. They were wonderful people, and wonderful friends to me. I learned a lot from them. I hope they learned something from me, but I know we had great joy fishing out there in the Pacific Ocean. Wish I was out there with you guys, and I'm sure he wishes that. In fact, he and Meade are both probably out there with you. I know you're going to spread their ashes, and they'll always be with you on those fishing boats. They're always with me. So before I finish up here, I want to raise a toast. First, let's have a toast of a Macallan single malt scotch for Bill. Then I'll have an Irish whiskey here, if I don't break the bottle, for Meade. And what I'd like to say, and I had to write this down because I don't have a good memory at my age, you might guess. I want to raise a toast to absent friends, however, with a caveat. True friends are always together in spirit. To Bill and to me, and to all of you, have a great and wonderful fishing trip. Have a drink for me while you're at it as well. Pretty doggone good stuff. I miss him. Have a good trip, folks.